Well, I knew one of the co-founders of Hamas, Dr. Abdelaziz Rantisi, who was a pediatrician. He was first in his class at the University of Alexandria. Very bright, not probably what you would expect from a Hamas leader. He was assassinated with his son by Israel in 2004, I think. He was in the refugee camp of Han Yunis in 1956 as a 10-year-old boy. Israel occupied Gaza for 100 days, and they rounded up, they were called Fedayeen. These were kind of guerrilla fighters or people suspected of either being fighters, supporting fighters, and lined them up against a wall and killed them, including members of his own family. That radicalized him, just as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are being radicalized right now, and we're going to hear from them. I mean, it's not going to be good. I was covering at the time, Hamas was carrying out suicide bombings on buses in Israel, which I covered. So, I mean, I was there after the bus explosions with the bodies. And I argued with them. I mean, I said, by indiscriminately killing Israeli civilians, including children, you're ceding the moral ground you have as an occupied people. And he would answer me with statistics. And he would say, well, this is the number of Palestinian children they've killed, and this is the number of children we've killed, and when they stop killing our children, we'll stop it. That was, especially for somebody that bright, you couldn't penetrate it. It disturbed me quite a bit. I mean, I'm often attacked by the Zionist lobby, but I think very few people have sat down with the head of Hamas and tried to argue with them about their suicide bombings, which appalled me, what he did. Dead children are dead children. I don't care whether they're Jewish or Muslim or whatever, make any difference. So, I mean, it was probably a response from someone who had trauma. I knew his replacement, Nizar Rayan, who was also assassinated, also in his house. I found him kind of thuggish. I mean, I don't like violence. I don't really care who wields it. I don't romanticize violence as some supporters of Palestine do. I can't go there. Violence is awful. I've been around it. I don't care who wields it. I think that Israel has essentially shut down any other way to resist. I'm a strong supporter of the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement because it's nonviolent. I mean, that's really where, since it founded, a lot of my energy went, in the same way that we built a successful sanction movement against South Africa. But I hate violence and people who wield it. I don't care whether they're Hamas or Israeli soldiers. So I just have a kind of anathema to violence. I mean, I understand how it arises. I put it in context. You have to put it in context, but I don't like it.
Most people tend to avoid things that they don't like. How was it that you ended up spending so much of your time in life and in work as a wartime correspondent when you hate violence so much?
Well, I didn't know violence till I started covering the war. It was academic for me. And I was still to this day admire George Orwell tremendously. And I wanted to, like Baldwin, use my writing as a weapon, not for propaganda, but as a weapon for truth, to expose what was happening to the vulnerable and the weak. That's why I went to the war in El Salvador. When I got there, the death squads were killing about 700 people a month. But when you cover war, you become infected with the poison of war. I mean, you become deformed by it. It doesn't matter what your intentions are going into it. The adrenaline highs, soldiers and Marines call it a combat high. It's real.
Oh, you would feel this?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, you become a kind of adrenaline junkie. I mean, I wrote a book called War is the Force That Gives Us Meaning, which I only put myself in there to illustrate a moral failing. but it's about the culture of war. Yeah, and you become. I mean, I was 5 years in the war in Salvador, so you reach a point where you can't almost function outside of that. I mean, I liken it. I haven't taken drugs, but to being a drug addict, where you need to go back for one more hit. That you're alienated when you're outside the war zone. At least when you're there, everybody around you are war junkies like you. It's not a healthy existence, but being a professional war correspondent means you leap from war to war to war around the globe. So 20 years later, I'm in Kosovo, and two of the reporters I work with, we covered the war in El Salvador together 2 decades earlier. It's very hard to let go, very hard. I mean, it probably took me 3 years to extract myself. Many of my friends knew they had to get out, but they got seduced to going back in, and they died. They got killed.
Because of this adrenaline junkie status.
Yeah, and the cachet and power. I mean, in a war zone, war zones are divided between the all-powerful, the people with the weapons, and the all-powerless, which is almost everyone else. But you are, as a war reporter, you have money, you have armored cars, you're not, although, I mean, there were times I had bodyguards. I had bodyguards in northern Iraq because Saddam Hussein put a price on my head, so I had 7 bodyguards.
I read that. That must have been horrifying. Or maybe it was appealing to you in a certain sense at that time.
No, I don't want to get shot.
But you said you get a high out of this.
I'm talking about combat.
Okay.
I'm talking about it. I mean, combat's weird because your parameter of fear becomes small, but when it's breached, I don't want to pretend you're not. I mean, terror is probably the right word. People are being shot near you. It's really scary. But I think with the weird pathology of war correspondence is that like a half hour later, you think it's a big cosmic joke, and you go back for more. I mean, it's not a sane lifestyle. And so I think my motives were good, but I became infected, like a lot of war junkies, a lot of people, photographers. I love these people too, by the way. I mean, my closest friend, Kurt Schork, was killed, along with another very good friend of mine, Miguel Gilmorain. I mean, a lot of people were killed. So, and I like them for their courage, for their honesty about themselves too. I mean, they were self-aware, and none of us thought we were Mother Teresa. And the good ones cared. I mean, they cared. They cared about the suffering around them. And of course, that's why the Israelis do not allow journalists into Gaza, foreign journalists into Gaza, and why they've killed, what is it, the number's now 129 Palestinian journalists or something, certainly over 100. Because in every war, the killers seek to keep what they have done shrouded in darkness. So like in Kosovo and also Salvador, they blocked the roads. We'd have to walk in. Sometimes snipers would open fire on us because they don't want the story told. And that's what we did. We made it hard for the killers to deny what they had done. That was our contribution.
Before an interview like this, I often have many questions swirling around that I want to ask, but that don't ever come up. But something you said jogged my memory, and you said something to the effect that initially your interest was more academic. Then it became sort of an addiction in a certain sense. But the reason that the word academic jogged my mind was that my memory is that I was very aware in having this interview that you're a journalist and you didn't take the route of political theory like Norman or history and economics like Rick, but you've ended up, I mean, you're writing about a lot of the same issues. And I'm wondering why it is that you chose this academic route instead of the traditional academic route to get at these same topics.
Well, I love reporting, and I learn a lot from it. As I said before, with the Christian right, I mean, assumptions that I carry get shattered. So it's a constant process of learning, and I think academics can become calcified if they stay in an academic environment. And so I mean, in the end, I look at myself as a journalist. I spent 8 years in a university. I mean, I studied classics, philosophy, English lit, theology. So, I mean, I certainly was well educated. And I think that's, so I'm good friends with Cornel West. I was good friends with Susan Sontag. These are really, really serious intellectuals. And I mean, both of them can, or Susan used to, and then Cornell can make me feel illiterate, even though I read a lot. But the difference is that I was in these places and saw these realities and reported on them. And I think that's my contribution, in that in the end, I'm not an academic. I am a journalist. But a journalist like my good friend Robert Fisk, who covered the Middle East for 44 years, wrote, I think, the best book on the modern Middle East, The Great War for Civilization. Robert had a PhD in history from Trinity College Dublin. So I think both of us bring a sense of history. That's what I tried to do in this book, a sense of context, a sense of understanding, because journalism itself is a very superficial profession. If you write, what happened today, which I've done probably hundreds of times in a refugee camp, there was an Israeli strike, this number of killed, here's the people. Without the context, you don't really understand what's going on. You need to go all the way back to the Balfour Declaration and Jabotinsky and Ben-Gurion and the Nakba. You need all that. And journalism doesn't do that. And that's why I prefer writing books, because you can put things in context. But in order to put them in context, you have to know history. You have to know culture. I mean, both Robert spoke Arabic, I speak Arabic. And so when that's combined with journalism, I think it's quite potent, quite powerful. But that's the difference between me and an academic. Also, I can write. Academics are terrible writers. They don't even make the effort, most of them. Maybe you do, but...